I never thought my ordinary life would shatter in an instant, that my boyfriend of 3 years would leave me for a woman who didn't even exist, that a billionaire would look at me and see his daughter, but that's exactly what happened. My name is Eliza Bennett. I was a normal university student with a part-time job, a decent apartment, and a boyfriend I thought I'd marry someday. Then, Vanessa Blackwood swept into our campus like a hurricane in designer clothes. She claimed to be a scholarship student, working nights to pay tuition. She'd pull out a tattered wallet when it was time to pay for coffee, claiming she could barely afford bus fare. But I knew something was off about her. The way her second-hand clothes fit too perfectly. How her budget makeup never smudged. The way she glanced at expensive watches like she was checking the time, not the price. Marcus fell for her act immediately. My boyfriend, the same one who promised we'd build a life together, was suddenly cancelling our dates to help Vanessa study. I tried not to be jealous. I tried to be understanding, until the day I saw her climb into a Bentley with a chauffeur after claiming she couldn't afford the campus shuttle. That day changed everything. I followed her, watching as she entered a mansion in the city's wealthiest district, greeted by staff who called her Miss Montgomery. Not Blackwood. Montgomery? As in William Montgomery, steel industry titan and one of the richest men in the country. The worst part? By the time I discovered her lies, Marcus had already fallen for them. 3 years together, erased by a woman who couldn't even tell him her real name. I was determined to expose her. So, I took a catering job at one of her father's famous galas. That night changed everything. As I served champagne, trying to remain invisible, William Montgomery stopped mid-conversation when he saw me. The room fell silent as he approached, his face ashen like he'd seen a ghost. "Elizabeth?" he whispered. "It's Eliza," I corrected him. His next words shattered my reality. "You have your mother's eyes. My Caroline's eyes." Vanessa watched in horror from across the room as her father took my trembling hands and said, "All these years, I never knew Caroline had a daughter. My daughter." Now I'm thrust into a world of wealth and privilege I never asked for, with a father I never knew existed, and an accidental, near drowning that suggests someone in the Montgomery mansion doesn't want me there at all. This is my story. It began in late September when the campus was buzzing with new semester energy. I was in my final year of business administration, working weekends at a cafe to pay rent. Marcus and I had been together since freshman year. We weren't perfect, but we were solid, or so I thought. I still remember the first time I saw Vanessa. She walked into my marketing class 15 minutes late, apologising profusely to the professor about getting lost on campus. Everyone stared. It wasn't just that she was beautiful, though she was, with her glossy dark hair and perfect skin. It was the way she carried herself, like royalty trying to blend in among commoners. "I'm new here," she announced, sliding into the empty seat beside mine. "Transfer student. I'm Vanessa Blackwood." She extended her hand with a practiced smile. "Mind if I borrow a pen? All my supplies are still being shipped." I handed her one, noting how her simple gold bracelet caught the light. It looked expensive, but I pushed the thought away. Who was I to judge? Marcus met Vanessa at the campus coffee shop where I'd brought him to study. He was instantly charmed by her stories about growing up in a small Oregon town, working since 16 to save for college, now taking night shifts at a restaurant downtown to make ends meet. "That's amazing," he said, eyes wide with admiration. "Eliza works at Palmer's Cafe on weekends. Maybe they're hiring?" Vanessa's smile never faltered. "Oh, I've already found something. The hours are brutal, but the tips are good." I tried to be friendly. I really did. I invited her to our study groups, offered to share my notes when she had to work and missed class. But something felt off. One evening, I stopped by the restaurant where she claimed to work. The manager had never heard of her. When I confronted her the next day, she laughed it off. Not that place, the other one across town, the new Italian spot. I let it go. Maybe I'd misunderstood. But the inconsistencies kept piling up. Her cheap phone was the latest model. Her budget laptop was top of the line. And sometimes, when she thought no one was looking, I'd catch her staring at us all with this strange expression, like we were specimens in a lab experiment she was conducting. Meanwhile, Marcus was spending more and more time with her. Study sessions, coffee meetups, helping her practice presentations on weekends. "She's just a friend, Eliza," he'd say whenever I brought it up. "She's alone in a new city. Be understanding." And I tried to be, until the day I saw him tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering just a moment too long. The way he used to do with me. I wasn't proud of what I did next. After class, I followed Vanessa. She took her usual route toward the student apartments, but then veered off toward the luxury district. I kept my distance, watching as she approached a sleek black Bentley parked discreetly behind a boutique. "Good afternoon, Miss Montgomery," the driver said, opening the door for her. "Your father called. He'll be arriving from London tonight." My heart stopped. Montgomery? Father? London? I followed the car through the wealthiest part of the city, my beat-up Honda drawing curious glances from security guards. The Bentley finally turned into a private driveway, guarded by an ornate iron gate that opened automatically. Beyond it stood a mansion that belonged in a movie, not real life. I parked across the street, watching as Vanessa, or whoever she was, stepped out of the car. A uniformed maid greeted her at the door. I sat there for an hour, too shocked to move, my mind racing to make sense of it all. That night, I couldn't sleep. I Googled Montgomery Mansion and found myself staring at articles about William Montgomery, industrial magnate and philanthropist. His net worth was estimated at $3.2 billion. And there, in a photo from a charity gala, was Vanessa standing beside him. The caption read, "William Montgomery with daughter Vanessa at annual Children's Hospital benefit." My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Can't make dinner tomorrow. Helping Vanessa prep for her interview." Rain check. Something inside me snapped. The next morning, I waited for Vanessa outside our marketing class. "How's your father's trip from London?" I asked casually when she approached. She didn't miss a beat. "I don't know what you're talking about. My father lives in Oregon. He's a high school teacher." "That's funny, because I saw you get into a Bentley yesterday. The driver called you Miss Montgomery." For a split second, her mask slipped. Her eyes narrowed, calculating. Then she laughed too loud. "You must have seen someone else. I take the bus, remember? I can barely afford the fare." She brushed past me into the classroom, but I caught her glancing back, worry etched across her face. Good. Let her worry. I decided to gather more evidence before confronting Marcus. The university's website advertised catering positions for an upcoming charity gala at the Montgomery estate. I applied immediately and was hired. They were short-staffed and desperate. The night of the gala, I arrived early with the catering team. The mansion was even more impressive up close, with marble floors and artwork that probably cost more than my entire education. I kept my head down, loading glasses onto trays, helping set up the champagne fountains. As guests began to arrive, I stayed in the background, serving drinks and watching. Vanessa appeared an hour into the event, descending the grand staircase in a red gown that probably cost more than my car. She worked the room like someone born to it, air-kissing cheeks and laughing at the right moments. And then William Montgomery arrived. He was taller than I expected, with silver-streaked dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Everyone gravitated toward him, the king entering his court. I was serving champagne to an elderly couple when Mr. Montgomery's gaze landed on me. He froze mid-sentence, his glass slipping from his fingers and shattering on the marble floor. The room fell silent. He walked toward me like a man in a trance, his face draining of colour. "Elizabeth?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. Confused, I shook my head. "It's Eliza Bennett." His hand trembled as he reached for me, stopping just short of touching my face. "Bennett, of course. You have your mother's eyes, my Caroline's eyes." The champagne tray slipped from my grasp, glasses crashing to the floor. Across the room, Vanessa was pushing through the crowd, her face a mask of horror. "Father," she hissed when she reached us, "you're making a scene. This is one of the servers." But he couldn't take his eyes off me. All these years, I never knew Caroline had a daughter. My daughter. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Vanessa's perfectly manicured hand clamped around my wrist like a vice. "This is ridiculous. She's nobody." "Caroline Bennett," Mr. Montgomery said, his voice gaining strength. "She was the love of my life 23 years ago. We were going to marry, but her family didn't approve. She disappeared. I searched, but—" He swallowed hard. "I never knew she was pregnant." My mind was spinning. My mother had died when I was 16, taking her secrets with her. She'd never spoken of my father except to say he wasn't in the picture. I'd always assumed he'd abandoned us. Now, this billionaire was claiming to be him. "This is absurd," Vanessa spat. "She probably planned this whole thing. She's dating my boyfriend, for God's sake." I whipped around to face her. "Your boyfriend? Marcus is my boyfriend, or was, until you lied your way into his life and mine." Mr. Montgomery's eyebrows shot up. "Boyfriend? What is she talking about, Vanessa?" Before she could answer, the room started spinning. 3 years with Marcus. A lifetime without knowing my father, my mother's secrets. It was too much. The last thing I remember is the cold marble floor rushing up to meet me as everything went black. I woke up in a bedroom larger than my entire apartment, lying on silken sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent. A woman in a crisp uniform was placing a cool cloth on my forehead. "You're awake," she said, her voice tinged with a Caribbean accent. "Mr. Montgomery asked me to look after you. I'm Rosa, the head housekeeper." I tried to sit up, but my head pounded in protest. "Where am I?" "Still at the Montgomery estate, in one of the guest rooms." She handed me a glass of water. "Mr. Montgomery is waiting to speak with you when you're ready. No rush." I took small sips, trying to process everything. Had that really happened? Had a billionaire really claimed to be my father in front of hundreds of people? The door opened, and William Montgomery himself stepped in, his tie loosened, looking exhausted. Rosa discreetly slipped out, closing the door behind her. "How are you feeling?" he asked, staying near the door as if afraid to come closer. "Confused," I admitted. "This has to be some kind of mistake." He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down heavily. "Your mother? Caroline Bennett, born in Marion, Indiana. Studied art at Northridge University. Had a small strawberry birthmark on her left shoulder blade." My breath caught. He was describing my mother perfectly. "We met when I was just starting my company," he continued. "I wasn't wealthy then, but her family still thought I wasn't good enough. Old money versus new. When she disappeared, I thought she'd chosen them over me." He leaned forward. "When were you born, Eliza?" "January 15th, I whispered. 22 years ago." He closed his eyes, doing the math. 9 months after she left. "This doesn't make sense. My mum never mentioned you. She raised me alone. We struggled." The unfairness of it all suddenly hit me. "Where were you? We could barely make rent sometimes." "I didn't know," he said, his voice breaking. "I swear to you, I didn't know. If I had—" He trailed off, his eyes filling with tears. "I have resources. We can confirm everything with a DNA test, but I don't need one. You're the image of her." A knock at the door interrupted us. Vanessa entered without waiting for a response, her mascara slightly smudged, her perfect poise cracking at the edges. "Father, the guests are asking questions, and this girl," she shot me a venomous look, "is clearly lying. This is some kind of scam." Mr. Montgomery stood. "That's enough, Vanessa." His voice was quiet but firm. "Eliza will be staying with us tonight. We have much to discuss." "She's nobody," Vanessa exploded. "Some waitress making up stories. And what about Marcus? She admitted she's trying to steal my boyfriend." I found my voice. "Marcus was my boyfriend for 3 years, before you showed up pretending to be poor. You're the liar here, Miss Blackwood. Or should I say Montgomery?" Vanessa's face contorted with rage. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Neither do you," I shot back. Mr. Montgomery stepped between us. "Both of you, stop. Vanessa, go downstairs and tell everyone I've been called away on urgent business. Make my apologies. Eliza needs rest." When she didn't move, he added, "Now, Vanessa." She left, slamming the door behind her. Mr. Montgomery turned back to me, his expression softening. "I'm sorry about that. Vanessa has always been challenging. Her mother and I divorced when she was 10. She's not used to sharing." I sank back against the pillows, overwhelmed. "I don't understand any of this. Yesterday I was just Eliza Bennett, regular college student. Now you're saying I'm a Montgomery," he finished for me. "If what I suspect is true. We'll sort everything out, I promise." He moved toward the door. "Try to rest. We'll talk more in the morning. And, Eliza, welcome home." As the door closed behind him, I stared at the ceiling, my mind reeling. Welcome home. This wasn't my home. My home was a cramped apartment with mismatched furniture and a leaky faucet. Not this palace with its secrets and lies and a sister who clearly wanted me gone. I reached for my phone to call Marcus, then stopped. What would I even say? That his new girlfriend was a fraud? That I might be the secret daughter of a billionaire? None of it seemed real. Outside the window, I could see the last guests departing, their expensive cars gliding down the circular driveway. Somewhere in this mansion, Vanessa was probably plotting how to get rid of me. And somewhere else, William Montgomery, possibly my father, was grappling with the reappearance of a love he thought he had lost forever. As for me, I was caught in the middle of a storm I never saw coming, with no idea what morning would bring. Sleep was impossible in that silk-sheeted bed, surrounded by luxury that felt alien to me. By dawn, I'd made up my mind to leave. I'd grab my things and disappear before the Montgomery drama could swallow me whole. But when I opened the bedroom door, Rosa was already there with a breakfast tray. "Mr. Montgomery asked me to bring you some clothes," she said, gesturing to a stack of designer items with tags still attached. "He thought you might want to freshen up before meeting with the family attorney." Family attorney? This was moving too fast. "I should go home," I said. "This is all a misunderstanding." Rosa's kind eye studied me. "Give him a chance, Miss Eliza. I've worked for Mr. Montgomery for 15 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you last night. Like he'd found something precious he thought was lost forever." Her words hit me harder than I expected. All my life I'd wondered about my father. My mother would only say he wasn't part of our lives and changed the subject. After she died of cancer when I was 16, I'd given up hope of ever knowing the truth. What if this wasn't a mistake? What if William Montgomery really was my father? I showered and dressed in the clothes he had sent, a simple blue dress that somehow fit perfectly and probably cost more than my monthly rent. When I emerged, a security guard escorted me downstairs to a study where Mr. Montgomery was waiting with an older man in a tailored suit. "Eliza, this is James Harrington, our family attorney," Mr. Montgomery said, rising to greet me. "I hope you don't mind, but I've asked him to arrange a DNA test to make everything official. The attorney nodded respectfully. Just a simple cheek swab. We can have results in 48 hours with our private lab. My mind raced. 2 days to confirm whether this billionaire was really my father. And if it's positive, then we'll discuss your rightful place in the Montgomery family, Mr. Montgomery said, including your inheritance. Inheritance? The word hung in the air like a foreign object. I hadn't even processed having a father, let alone a fortune. That's very presumptuous, I managed. I have my own life, my studies, my job, which we can discuss at length, he assured me. I'm not trying to upend your world, Eliza, but if you are my daughter, you deserve to know your heritage, and I've lost 22 years with you already. I don't want to lose another day. Something in his voice, a rawness, a sincerity, made me agree to the test. The attorney produced a small kit, and minutes later our DNA samples were sealed in separate envelopes. I'll deliver these to the lab myself, Harrington said, excusing himself. Once we were alone, Mr. Montgomery, I couldn't bring myself to call him anything else yet, offered me a tour of the estate. As we walked through rooms larger than my entire apartment building, he told me stories of his life. How he'd built his company from nothing. How he'd loved my mother, but lost her to family pressure. Your grandfather never thought I was good enough for Caroline, he explained as we stood in a garden blooming with flowers I couldn't name. He was old money, and I was a nobody with big dreams. When Caroline disappeared, I thought she'd chosen them over me. She never mentioned any of this, I said quietly. She worked 2 jobs to support us. We lived in a tiny apartment in the East Side. If you had all this wealth, why didn't she come to you when she was pregnant? Pain flickered across his face. I've been asking myself the same question all night. The only answer I can imagine is that she believed I wouldn't want her or the baby. We had a fight before she left about her family's interference. I said some things I deeply regretted. He looked away. Or perhaps she tried to find me but couldn't. I was still building my company then, moving constantly. By the time I had success and stability, maybe too much time had passed and she'd made a life without me. I thought of my mother, her quiet strength, her stubborn pride. She was never one to ask for help, even when we needed it. Just like her, he murmured, a sad smile crossing his face. Our moment was interrupted by the click of heels on marble. Vanessa appeared, looking immaculate in a white sundress, not a hair out of place despite the early hour. "Father," she said coolly, "the car is here to take me to brunch with the Astors. Will you be joining us as planned?" Her eyes slid to me, taking in the clothes he'd provided, calculating. I felt like an imposter in this designer dress, playing dress-up in a world I didn't belong in. "Not today," Mr. Montgomery replied. "Eliza and I have much to catch up on. Please give Eleanor my regrets." Vanessa's perfect smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. I suppose I should get used to our plans changing, now that your new daughter has appeared." The way she said new daughter, like it was a disease, made me bristle. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text. It was Marcus. "Where are you? Been trying to reach you since last night." I'd completely forgotten about him in the chaos. What would I even tell him? "Sorry, I missed our date. I was busy discovering my billionaire father." "I need to go," I said abruptly. "I have personal matters to attend to." Mr. Montgomery looked disappointed, but nodded. "Of course. I'll have my driver take you wherever you need to go." He handed me a business card. "My private number is on the back. Please call me day or night if you need anything." As the sleek town car pulled away from the Montgomery estate, I finally replied to Marcus. "We need to talk. Meet me at the Blue Cafe in an hour." I directed the driver to drop me at my apartment first. I needed my own clothes, my own space, time to think. but as soon as I unlocked my door, I knew something was wrong. The place had been ransacked, drawers emptied, books scattered, my laptop missing. I called the police, who arrived promptly but offered little hope. "No signs of forced entry," the officer noted. "Do you have any enemies, Miss Bennett? Anyone who might want to send you a message?" Vanessa's face flashed in my mind, but I dismissed the thought. She was a liar and a boyfriend stealer, but breaking and entering seemed extreme even for her. "No," I said. "No enemies." After the police left, I changed into my own clothes. Jeans and a simple top, and headed to meet Marcus. He was already waiting at our usual table, looking anxious. "Where have you been?" he demanded as soon as I sat down. "I heard the craziest rumours. That you crashed the Montgomery gala? That William Montgomery claimed you're his daughter? Vanessa was hysterical when she called me last night." Of course she'd called him. Probably spun some tale about me being a deranged stalker. "It's all true," I said simply. "I was catering the event. Montgomery recognised me, said I looked just like my mother. We're doing a DNA test." Marcus's jaw dropped. "You're serious? You might be a Montgomery." "I'm still Eliza Bennett," I corrected sharply. "Nothing's changed, except I might finally know who my father is." He had the decency to look ashamed. "I didn't mean it like that." He reached for my hand across the table. "This is insane, Eliza, in a good way. If it's true, your life is going to completely change." I pulled my hand away. "Speaking of changes, when were you going to tell me about you and Vanessa?" His face fell. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you dumped me for a girl who lied about everything. Her name, her background, even where she lives." "She explained all that," he defended. "She was afraid people would only like her for her money if they knew the truth." I laughed bitterly. "And you believed that? She's been playing everyone, Marcus, including you. She pretended to be poor to infiltrate our lives like some weird social experiment." "That's not fair," he snapped. "She was just trying to have a normal college experience." "By stealing my boyfriend? That's normal to you?" Marcus had the audacity to look offended. "We connected, Eliza. It wasn't planned. And honestly, we'd been growing apart for months. You were always working, always stressed about money." "Because I actually had to work. Unlike your new girlfriend, who was slumming it for fun while her chauffeur waited around the corner." People at nearby tables were starting to stare. I lowered my voice. "You know what? Keep her. You deserve each other." I stood up, slinging my bag over my shoulder. "By the way, someone broke into my apartment today. If it was your girlfriend's idea of a warning, tell her it didn't work." I walked out, ignoring him calling my name. Outside, tears threatened, but I blinked them back. I wasn't going to cry over Marcus or Vanessa. I had bigger things to worry about now. My phone rang, an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Eliza Bennett?" A man's voice, vaguely familiar. "Yes. This is James Harrington, the Montgomery family attorney. There's been a development I think you should be aware of. Can you meet me at my office?" An hour later, I sat across from Harrington in a corner office with a view of the city skyline. "Mr. Montgomery asked me to look into your mother's past," he explained, opening a thick folder, "to try to understand why she never told him about you. I found something interesting." He slid a document across the desk. "This is a letter your mother wrote to William, dated a month after she left him. It was returned unopened." I stared at the yellowed envelope, my mother's handwriting achingly familiar. Across the front was stamped, "Return to sender, no such address." "She tried to find him," I whispered. "It appears so. The address she used was his old apartment, but he'd already moved by then, expanding his business. There are records of several more attempts over the next few months, all returned. After that, nothing." My throat tightened. She had tried to tell him she hadn't just disappeared. "There's more," Harrington continued. "I found a record of a trust established in your name when you were 5 years old. A substantial amount of money set up by your maternal grandfather, Gordon Bennett." "My grandfather had died before I was born. I barely knew anything about him." "The trust was structured to be inaccessible until your 25th birthday. Your mother was the trustee, but after her passing, the secondary trustee took control." "Who was that?" "A business associate of your grandfather's, Frederick Montgomery." I felt like I'd been punched. "Montgomery, as in—" "William's uncle," Harrington confirmed. "It seems your grandfather knew exactly who your father was and made arrangements with his family, just not with William himself." My mind spun with implications. "So my grandfather kept us from my father, then secretly set up a trust with his uncle? Why?" "Old family politics can be complicated," Harrington said diplomatically. "What matters is that this trust exists. It's worth approximately $20 million now, and you're entitled to it in less than 3 years. $20 million. I couldn't even process the number. "Does Mr. Montgomery, my father, know about this?" "I informed him this morning. He was surprised, to say the least. Frederick passed away 10 years ago without ever mentioning your existence to William." I left Harrington's office in a daze, my worldview shifting yet again. My mother had tried to tell my father about me. My grandfather had secretly provided for me through my father's family. Nothing was as simple as it had seemed. When I returned to my apartment, the landlord had already changed the locks due to the break-in. As I sorted through what remained of my belongings, my phone rang again. This time it was Mr. Montgomery. "Eliza, I've just heard about your apartment. I'm so sorry. Please come stay at the estate while this is sorted out. We have plenty of room and security." I hesitated, thinking of Vanessa's hostility. But where else could I go? "Thank you," I said finally, "just until I find a new place." 2 hours later, I was back at the Montgomery mansion, this time with a suitcase of my remaining clothes. Rosa showed me to a different guest room, even larger than the first. "Mr. Montgomery had to step out for a business emergency," she explained. "He asked me to make sure you're comfortable. Dinner is at 7 in the main dining room." Left alone, I unpacked my meagre belongings, feeling out of place among the antique furniture and original artwork. A knock at the door made me jump. It was Vanessa leaning against the doorframe with calculated casualness. "So, you're moving in already? Didn't take long to cash in on Daddy's guilt, did it?" "My apartment was broken into," I said coolly. "This is temporary." She stepped into the room uninvited, her eyes cold. "Let me be clear, Eliza. I don't believe for a second you're William's daughter. And even if that DNA test comes back positive, it doesn't make you a Montgomery." "Not really." "I'm not trying to be a Montgomery," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "I just want the truth about my father." "The truth?" she laughed. "The truth is that you're nothing but a gold-digging opportunist. I've seen your type before, showing up out of nowhere, claiming to be long-lost family. It always ends the same way." "That's rich, coming from the girl who pretended to be poor to what? Slum it with the commoners? Steal my boyfriend for fun?" Her perfect composure slipped just slightly. "Marcus was never right for you anyway. He wanted more than your pathetic little life could offer. And what about your lies? Does he know the real Vanessa Montgomery now? Or are you still playing poor little rich girl?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Listen carefully. My father may be blinded by sentimentality right now, but I've been the only Montgomery heir for 22 years, and that's not changing. Whatever scheme you're running, it won't work." "I'm not running any scheme," I insisted. "I didn't ask for any of this." "Then leave," she hissed. "Walk away now, and I'll make sure you are compensated for your trouble." I stared at her, incredulous. "You're trying to bribe me to disappear. You really are something else." "Think about it," she said, turning to leave. "A clean break is better for everyone." After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling slightly. Her threat felt very real, but I couldn't walk away now, not when I was so close to answers I'd wanted my entire life. At dinner, Mr. Montgomery was still absent, leaving just Vanessa and me at opposite ends of a table long enough for 20. The silence was excruciating, broken only by the clink of silverware and the soft footsteps of the serving staff. Finally, unable to bear it anymore, I asked, "Why did you lie about who you were at school? What was the point?" Vanessa sipped her wine before answering. "You wouldn't understand. When you're a Montgomery, nobody sees you. Just your money, your connections. I wanted to know what it was like to be normal, to be liked for myself. By pretending to be someone else, that's not being liked for yourself. I only changed my name and background. Everything else was real." She set down her glass. "Besides, it worked. For once, people weren't kissing up to me because of my father. It was refreshing." I thought about how she'd wormed her way into our friend group, our study sessions, my relationship. And Marcus? Was he just part of your normal experience too? Something like genuine emotion flickered across her face. "Marcus was unexpected. He's different. He doesn't care about money or status. No, he just cares about loyalty," I snapped, "which neither of you seem to understand." She studied me across the candlelight. "You know, for someone supposedly raised in poverty, you have quite the moral high ground. Being poor doesn't make you immoral, just like being rich doesn't make you entitled to whatever or whoever you want." The rest of the meal passed in tense silence. Afterward, I retreated to my room, locking the door behind me. Something about Vanessa's threats had unsettled me deeply. I pushed a chair against the doorknob just in case and tried to sleep. The next morning, Mr. Montgomery still hadn't returned. I spent the day exploring the estate, careful to avoid Vanessa. The groundskeeper showed me the gardens, the stables, even a small art gallery housing pieces by masters I'd only seen in textbooks. In the afternoon, I found myself in the library, a 2-story room lined with leather-bound books. Running my fingers along the spines, I discovered a section of photo albums. Curiosity got the... Morning arrived with golden light streaming through curtains worth more than my monthly grocery budget. I dressed carefully in my own clothes, a simple blouse and jeans, rather than the designer options that had appeared in my closet overnight. If this DNA test confirmed what William Montgomery already believed, I wanted to face the news as myself, Eliza Bennett, not some polished version created to fit into this world. Rosa knocked at precisely 9 o'clock. "Mr. Montgomery is waiting for you in his study for the video call with the laboratory." I followed her through the maze of corridors, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. This moment would change everything, or nothing. Either way, I'd finally have an answer to the question that had haunted me my entire life. Who was my father? The study door was ajar. I could hear voices inside, William Montgomery's deep timbre and Vanessa's sharp, insistent tone. "Father, you can't be serious about this. We don't even know if she's really Caroline's daughter, let alone yours." "The resemblance is undeniable, Vanessa. She has Caroline's eyes, her smile, and the model car. That's something no imposter could have known about." "So, she did her research? People have pulled scams like this before?" "Not Eliza," he said with such certainty that it made my breath catch. "I know my daughter when I see her." "I'm your daughter," Vanessa's voice broke slightly. "I've always been your daughter." "And you always will be," he assured her. This doesn't change how I feel about you, Vanessa. There's room in my heart for both of you. I knocked lightly, not wanting to eavesdrop any longer. The conversation abruptly stopped. "Come in," Montgomery called. He was seated behind an imposing mahogany desk, while Vanessa perched on the edge of a leather chair nearby, her posture rigid with tension. A large monitor on the wall displayed a waiting screen for the video call. "Eliza," Montgomery stood, smiling warmly. "Did you sleep well?" "Well enough," I said, taking the chair farthest from Vanessa. "Is the lab ready?" "They should be connecting any minute." He glanced at his watch. "James Harrington will be joining us as well, for legal purposes." The attorney arrived moments later, briefcase in hand, nodding formally to each of us. The atmosphere in the room was so tense I could barely breathe. At precisely 9:15, the screen flickered to life, revealing a man in a white lab coat seated at a desk. "Good morning, Mr. Montgomery. I have the results of the comparison you requested." "Please proceed, Dr. Chen," Montgomery said, his voice steady, though his hands gripped the edge of his desk. The doctor cleared his throat. "Based on the samples provided, I can confirm with 99.9% certainty that William Montgomery is the biological father of Eliza Bennett." The world seemed to stop. I heard the words, understood their meaning, but couldn't quite process their reality. I had a father. He was sitting across from me in this room. My father. Montgomery's face broke into a smile so genuine, so full of joy, that it transformed him completely. "Thank you, Doctor. That will be all for now." As the call ended, he turned to me, tears glistening in his eyes. "Eliza," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "My daughter." Before I could respond, there was a crash as Vanessa knocked over a crystal paperweight, sending it shattering across the floor. "This is ridiculous," she hissed. "One test and suddenly she gets half of everything." "I won't accept it." "Vanessa," Montgomery's voice hardened. "That's enough. We've confirmed what I already knew. Eliza is my daughter, your half-sister, and a rightful Montgomery heir." "Half-sister." She spat the word like it was poison. "Half of everything that should have been mine alone." "I don't want half of anything," I interjected. "I didn't come here for money." Vanessa laughed bitterly. "How noble! Tell me, what did you come here for then? A daddy to make everything better? To replace the boyfriend you couldn't keep?" "Vanessa," Montgomery stood, his patience clearly at an end. "Apologize to your sister immediately." "She is not my sister," Vanessa shouted, tears streaming down her perfect face now. "She's nobody, a fraud. She probably broke into her own apartment to gain your sympathy." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Montgomery looked at her sharply. "What did you just say?" Vanessa paled, realizing her mistake. I didn't mean... Did you have something to do with the break-in at Eliza's apartment?" Montgomery's voice was dangerously quiet. "Of course not," she scoffed, but her eyes darted away. "I'm just saying it's convenient timing." I studied her face, seeing the lie written across it. "It was you, wasn't it? You sent someone to ransack my place. What were you looking for? Evidence to discredit me?" Her silence was confirmation enough. Montgomery looked at his elder daughter with disappointment etched into every line of his face. "Vanessa, if I find out you were involved in any way..." "Your what, father?" she challenged. "Disown me? Replace me with your new perfect daughter? Go ahead. See if I care." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Harrington, who had been discreetly taking notes, cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion another time." Montgomery nodded, visibly shaken. "Yes, that would be best. Thank you, James." As the attorney gathered his things and left, Montgomery turned to me. Eliza, I am so sorry for Vanessa's behaviour. This has been difficult for her. I understand, I said, though I didn't. Not really. How could someone who had everything be so threatened by my existence? He smiled sadly. You're very kind. More than she deserves right now. He reached across the desk and took my hand. But let's not let her reaction overshadow what this means. You're my daughter. After all these years, I've found you. The emotion in his voice was so raw, so genuine, that I felt my own eyes well with tears. I don't know what happens now, I admitted. This is all so overwhelming. Whatever you want to happen, he said simply. I won't pressure you. If you want to return to your life as it was, I'll respect that, though I hope you'll allow me to be part of it. If you want to embrace your place in this family, everything I have is yours to share. It was too much to process all at once. I need some time, I said. Of course. He squeezed my hand before releasing it. Take all the time you need. I've waited 22 years to be your father. I can wait a little longer for you to decide what that means to you. I spent the rest of the morning wandering the grounds, trying to make sense of my new reality. I had a father, a living, breathing father who wanted me in his life. And not just any father, but William Montgomery, one of the wealthiest men in the country. It was like waking up in someone else's life. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Heard the test was positive. Congratulations, Eliza. Can we talk? I deleted it without responding. Marcus was the least of my concerns right now. As I approached the ornate swimming pool at the far end of the property, I spotted Vanessa sitting alone at the edge, her feet dangling in the water. For a moment, I considered turning back, avoiding another confrontation, but something made me continue forward. Mind if I join you? I asked. She looked up, her expression guarded. Without makeup and her usual perfect styling, she looked younger, more vulnerable. It's your house now too, apparently. Do whatever you want. I sat down several feet away, removing my shoes to dip my toes in the cool water. For a while, neither of us spoke. You know, she finally said, breaking the silence, I always wanted a sister when I was little. Ironic, isn't it? I glanced at her, surprised by the admission. What changed? She traced patterns in the water with her foot. My mother left when I was 10. She'd had enough of my father's devotion to his work, his empire building. She remarried quickly, a man with 3 children of his own. I suddenly had step-siblings I was expected to bond with, while my own father buried himself in work to avoid his pain. Her laugh was hollow. I hated them all. The step-siblings for having what I didn't, my mother for choosing her new family over me, my father for not fighting harder to keep us together. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. That must have been hard. She shrugged, aiming for nonchalance but missing by a mile. I learned to stand on my own, to be the perfect daughter when he was looking, to do whatever I wanted when he wasn't. She glanced at me sideways. You know, when I first saw you at school, I envied you. Me? I couldn't hide my shock. Why? You seemed so content. You worked hard, sure, but you had real friends, a boyfriend who adored you, professors who respected you. No one expected anything from you except what you chose to give. So you decided to take it all for yourself? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. She had the grace to look slightly ashamed. I didn't plan to take Marcus, that just happened. He was kind to me, not because I was a Montgomery, but because he thought I was nobody special. And now that he knows who you really are, her face fell slightly. He hasn't returned my call since the gala. Apparently, he doesn't appreciate being lied to. Imagine that. I couldn't help the small, satisfied smile that tugged at my lips. Karma works in mysterious ways. She splashed water in my direction, not quite playfully, but not entirely hostile either. Don't get smug. It doesn't suit you. She stood up, water dripping from her legs. Just so we're clear, I still don't want you here. But I did what I did to protect what's mine, not because I hate you personally. With that peculiar non-apology, she walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the gentle lapping of water against the pool's edge. Later that afternoon, Rosa found me in the garden and informed me that Mr. Montgomery, my father, wanted to speak with me. I found him in his study again, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him yet. "Eliza," he smiled, gesturing for me to sit. "I've been thinking about what you said earlier, about needing time. I want to make something clear. There's no pressure for you to decide anything right now. Stay here as long as you like. Get to know me. Let me get to know you. But I also understand if you want to maintain your independence." "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched by his consideration. "It's a lot to process." "Of course it is," he leaned forward. "That's why I'd like to make a proposal. I've arranged for you to have your own apartment, if you want it. A place of your own, but close enough that we can see each other regularly. And of course, I'll cover your tuition and living expenses, regardless of where you choose to stay." The offer was generous, overwhelmingly so, yet something made me hesitate. "That's very kind, but I've always taken care of myself. I'm not sure I know how to be taken care of." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Your mother raised you well. She taught you to be independent, strong. I admire that." He thought for a moment. "What if we compromise? Allow me to provide the apartment and tuition, things a father should provide for his child. But you can continue your job if it's important to you. Your life remains your own. I'm just privileged to be part of it now." Put that way, it was hard to refuse. "I'd like that," I admitted. "Thank you." His face lit up with genuine happiness. "Wonderful. We can look at places whenever you're ready." He hesitated, then continued. "There's one more thing. The gala was interrupted by our reunion. I'd like to host another event to properly introduce you to society as my daughter. Nothing too overwhelming, just close friends and business associates." The thought of being presented to Montgomery's social circle was terrifying. I wouldn't know how to act, what to say. "You'll be perfect just as you are," he assured me. "But if it would make you more comfortable, I can arrange for someone to help you prepare. Etiquette, protocol, that sort of thing." I thought about it. If I was going to be part of William Montgomery's life, I'd need to understand his world, even if I didn't fully belong in it. "Okay," I agreed, "but nothing too extravagant." He beamed. "Of course not. Just a small dinner party. Next Saturday, perhaps?" I nodded, already wondering what I'd gotten myself into. The week that followed was a whirlwind of activity. I moved into a stunning apartment that made my old place look like a shoebox, though I insisted on bringing what few possessions I had salvaged from the break-in. William, as he'd asked me to call him, hired a personal shopper to help me build a wardrobe suitable for a Montgomery, despite my protests that my jeans and t-shirts were perfectly fine. Vanessa kept her distance, though I occasionally caught her watching me with an unreadable expression. We existed in a fragile truce, neither friendly nor openly hostile. And then there was Marcus. He continued to text, each message more desperate than the last, until finally I agreed to meet him at a cafe near my new apartment. "You look different," he said when I arrived, his eyes taking in my new clothes, the subtle highlights in my hair that the stylist had insisted on. "I'm still me," I replied, sliding into the chair across from him. He fidgeted with his coffee cup. "Eliza, I've been doing a lot of thinking. What happened with Vanessa, it was a mistake. I got caught up in the novelty of her, but it wasn't real." "You're right about that," I said coolly. "Nothing about her was real." "That's not fair," he defended automatically, then caught himself. Sorry, old habit. He reached for my hand. The point is, I miss you. What we had was real. And now that you're a Montgomery too, I pulled my hand away, anger flaring. Now that I'm a Montgomery? Is that what this is about? You traded me in for a rich girl, and now that I'm rich too, you want me back? No, he protested. That's not what I meant. I just meant that things are different now. You're different. I'm exactly the same person I was 2 weeks ago, I said. The only thing that's changed is how people see me, including you, apparently. The truth dawned in his eyes. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm handling this all wrong. He took a deep breath. The truth is, I made a terrible mistake. I let myself be dazzled by Vanessa's act, and I hurt the one person who's always been real with me. I don't care if you're Eliza Bennett or Eliza Montgomery or anything in between. I just want another chance. Part of me, a small, wounded part, wanted to believe him. But too much had happened, too much had changed. I can't, Marcus. Maybe you did make a mistake, but so did I, trusting someone who would throw away 3 years for a pretty face and a sad story. I deserved better than that. His face fell, but he nodded slowly. I understand. He stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I really am sorry, and I hope you find happiness in your new life. You deserve it, Eliza. As I watched him walk away, I felt a strange sense of closure. One chapter of my life ending as another began. The night of the dinner party arrived all too quickly. I stood in my room at the Montgomery estate. I'd agreed to stay there for the weekend to prepare for the event, staring at my reflection in a full-length mirror. The woman looking back at me wore a midnight blue gown that cost more than 6 months' rent at my old apartment, her hair swept up in an elegant twist, subtle diamond earrings catching the light. You look beautiful, Rosa said from the doorway. Like royalty. I smiled nervously. I feel like an imposter. Nonsense. She adjusted a stray curl. You're William Montgomery's daughter. This is who you were always meant to be. But was it? The question had haunted me all week. Was I Eliza Bennett, who worked weekends at a cafe and counted pennies for textbooks? Or was I Eliza Montgomery, heiress to a fortune with a place in high society? Could I be both? A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. William stood there, handsome in a tailored tuxedo, his face lighting up when he saw me. Eliza, he breathed, you look just like your mother. His eyes grew misty. She would be so proud of you. I felt tears threatening to spill and blinked them back. Thank you, Dad. It was the first time I'd called him that. His smile could have lit up the entire mansion. Are you ready? He asked, offering his arm. Our guests are arriving. I took a deep breath and accepted his arm. As ready as I'll ever be. The grand ballroom downstairs was filled with elegantly dressed people, soft music playing as servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Every head turned as we entered, curious whispers spreading like wildfire. William guided me through the crowd, introducing me to more people than I could possibly remember. Business associates, family friends, society figures, all greeting me with varying degrees of warmth and curiosity. Miss Bennett, a familiar voice said behind me during a rare moment alone. Or should I say, Miss Montgomery? I turned to find Vanessa resplendent in a crimson gown, her smile tight but not entirely hostile. Eliza is fine, I said cautiously. She nodded, sipping her champagne. You clean up well. Father's set designer has been busy. I refused to rise to the bait. You look lovely too, Vanessa. She studied me for a moment, then sighed. Look, I've been thinking. We're stuck with each other, like it or not. Fighting you is exhausting and it's making Father miserable. So what do you say to a truce? Not friendship, let's not get carried away, but peaceable coexistence. It was more than I'd expected from her. I'd like that, I said honestly. Good. She glanced around the room. Besides, these vultures would love nothing more than to see us tear each other apart. I refuse to give them the satisfaction. I followed her gaze to the curious onlookers trying to eavesdrop on our conversation. Agreed, no public drama. She clinked her glass against mine. To peaceable coexistence, then. It wasn't friendship, but it was a start. William joined us moments later, beaming at the sight of his daughters standing together without obvious hostility. There's someone I'd like you both to meet, he said, guiding us toward an elderly man in a wheelchair near the corner of the room. As we approached, the man looked up, his weathered face breaking into a smile. So, this is her, he said, his voice thin but clear. Caroline's daughter. William nodded. Eliza, this is my Uncle Frederick, the man who apparently knew about you all along. My breath caught. Frederick Montgomery, the trustee of the account my grandfather had set up. The man who had known who I was but never told William. You have questions, Frederick said, motioning for me to come closer. I can see them in your eyes, just like Caroline. Why didn't you tell him? I asked, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. You knew I existed. You knew I was his daughter. Frederick sighed heavily. A promise to a dying man. Your grandfather made me swear I would look after you from afar, but never reveal your existence to William. He believed it would be better that way. Better? William's voice was tight with controlled anger. How was keeping my daughter from me better for anyone? The old man shook his head sadly. Gordon Bennett was a proud, stubborn man. He convinced himself that you would ruin Caroline's life, that you weren't worthy of her or the child. By the time he realized his mistake, it was too late. Caroline had built a life without you, and his pride wouldn't let him admit he was wrong. He looked at me with rheumy eyes. I set up the trust as he asked, made sure you would have what you needed when the time came. It was the best compromise I could manage. You could have told me, William insisted. After Gordon died, after Caroline died. Perhaps I should have, Frederick admitted. But by then, years had passed. You had Vanessa, a new life. I told myself it would only cause pain to reopen old wounds. He reached for my hand. I'm sorry, child. An old man's mistake, thinking he knew best. I should have been angry at him, at my grandfather, at all the adults who had decided my fate without considering what I might want or need. But looking at Frederick's face, lined with regret and age, I couldn't summon the energy for anger. What matters is that we found each other now, I said, glancing at William. The past is done. William's expression softened, his hand coming to rest on my shoulder. Wise words from my daughter. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and polite conversation. I danced with William, laughed at Vanessa's surprisingly astute commentary on the guests, and even managed a civil exchange with Frederick about my mother's love of art. As the last guest departed well past midnight, I found myself on the terrace, breathing in the cool night air. Stars twinkled overhead, so much more visible here than in my old neighbourhood. William joined me, offering a glass of water. You were magnificent tonight, a natural. I smiled, too tired to correct him. Nothing about the evening had felt natural to me, but I'd survived it. Thank you for everything, not just tonight, but everything. He understood what I meant. You never have to thank me for being your father, Eliza. It's the greatest gift I've ever received. He hesitated, then added, I've been meaning to ask. Would you consider taking the Montgomery name? Legally, I mean. You don't have to decide now, of course. The question caught me off guard. Eliza Montgomery. It had a certain ring to it, but Was I ready to let go of Eliza Bennett, the name my mother had given me, the identity I'd built for myself? I need to think about it, I said honestly. He nodded, understanding. Of course, no pressure. He gazed out at the gardens, silver in the moonlight. Whatever you decide, you'll always be my daughter. Nothing can change that now. As I looked up at him, this man who was my father, who had missed 2 decades of my life but was determined to make up for lost time, I felt something settle in my chest, a sense of belonging I'd never truly had before. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if I would ever fully adapt to this new world of wealth and privilege, if Vanessa and I would ever truly be sisters, if I would take the Montgomery name or keep my own. But I knew that after years of wondering, of feeling incomplete, I'd finally found the missing piece of myself. I was Eliza Bennett, daughter of Caroline. I was Eliza Montgomery, daughter of William. And for the first time in my life, I was whole. I know, I said, leaning my head against his shoulder, and you'll always be my father. In the end, it wasn't about the money or the mansion or the Montgomery name. It was about finding where I belonged, not in this world or that one, but in the family I never knew I had. A family that, despite its flaws and complications, had room for one more. Room for me,